Welcome to the WSGA webinar covering how a handicap index is calculated and what an ESC score is. My name is Collin Westwood and I will be presenting today. Thank you for joining us. To start out with, what is a handicap index? The USGA's definition is a handicap index is a service mark used to indicate a measurement of a player's potential ability on a course of standard playing difficulty. Now, the two key things here to remember is that the handicap index is about a player's potential ability, and it's based off of the standard playing difficulty of a golf course. So the difficulty of your golf course does come into play when calculating a handicap index. A standard difficulty is a course with a slope rating of 113, and it is expressed as a number taken to one decimal place. This is also the number that's used to convert to a course handicap when you're playing in a competition at a particular set of tees. Every 1st and 15th of each month, the handicap index is updated with any recent scores you have posted. So the first thing we want to go over today is adjusted gross score. An adjusted gross score is what you will post to produce your handicap index. So every time you post an adjusted gross score and not just a plain old gross score. What this means is that an adjusted gross score is the score you use taking into account things like unfinished holes, conceded strokes, holes not played under the rules of golf, and equitable stroke control. The first two things, unfinished holes and conceded strokes, how you handle those is you will actually post what your most likely score would be. So if it takes you 4 shots to the green, and then you pick up because you already lost the hole, then the most likely you would 2-putt unless you're further away and you feel like it would be a 3-putt. Now these scores will not exceed your equitable stroke control, which we will get to in just a moment. The next portion of that is holes not played or not played under the rules of golf. To post a hole not played, you use a parameter called par plus. And what this means is that you will post a score that is equal to par plus any handicap strokes that you would get on that hole. Now to know this, you will need to know your course handicap, and then you would apply that to your holes and see how many you would get. For example, someone with a course handicap of 18 would have 1 stroke on every hole. So on a par 4, they would post a 5. On a par 5, they would post a 6. The final part of the adjusted gross score is equitable stroke control. What this is it sets a hole-by-hole limit of strokes you can post. So as you can see here, if your course handicap is 9 or less, the most you can post is a double bogey, all the way up to someone who has a 40 handicap or more, the most they can post is a 10. So if you shoot a 12 or 14 on a hole, while you can use that score in your tournament for scoring, you would not post that amount. The most you would post is a 10 if you're a 40 handicap. If you're a 17 like myself, you would only post a 7 at max. No matter how high your hole score is, it would reduce down to whatever number equals your course handicap. Now this is very important because what it does is it takes outliers out of your handicapping. Because remember, a handicap is a statistical number, and any numbers that are way out of the norm is called an outlier, and it's something that needs to be removed to make sure that the handicap index comes out correctly. You know, for most of us, 12s, 13s are not a normal score. So that is why they are removed. This is done at the end of your round when you are at your computer and figuring out your total score. So you don't have to do this during the round, but at the end you should figure it out and then come up with your adjusted gross score based on these factors we just talked about. Now that we have our adjusted gross scores and they are posted to our handicap, our GIN handicap, we can now go on to calculating our handicap index. Now, the first thing we need to do when calculating a handicap index is find out what our handicap differential is. A handicap differential is your adjusted gross score and then converting that into the differential by using the course and slope ratings of whatever course you played. So as you can see here, we have the formula written down. It is a handicap differential equals adjusted gross score minus the WSGA course rating. Now that is multiplied by our standard slope rating, which is 113, and then it's divided by the slope rating of the course played. And then the handicap differential is rounded to one number, so it looks very similar to a handicap index. And now let's give you a few examples of how this equates out. Alright, so in this example, we scored 88, and our course had a rating of 72.4 and a slope of 135. So as we figure that out, 88 minus 72.4 is 15.6, multiplied by 113 is 1,762.8, divided by 135 comes out to 13.058, which rounds to 13.1. And then the example below this is what I wanted to kind of show you guys here, is that we have the same score, but we have an easier golf course. So we have a slope rating of 127 now and a course rating of 69.9. So we have 88 minus 69.9 equals 18.1 multiplied by 113 for 2,045.3 divided by 127, and rounding we come out to 16.1. So as you can notice here, we have two scores that are exactly the same but played on different golf courses, and we have a difference in handicap differential of 3 strokes. So this is really important to remember, is that it's not just your score alone that your handicap index is based on. It is not only your score, but also the difficulty of golf course you played. So if this person had a handicap index based off of this one score, we would have a 13.1 versus a 16.1, even though they shot the same score. And that is all based off difficulty of golf course. It's very important to remember that that's a huge factor in coming up with your handicap index. It's not just what you shoot, but where you shoot it. All right, now moving on, once we have our handicap differential, we now have to find out what our handicap index is. So the handicap index very basically is an average of handicap differentials. At the max, when you have 20 scores posted, you will use the 10 lowest differentials out of those past 20 scores. The system uses the most recent 20 scores and then pits the 10 that have the lowest differential. Not the lowest score, but the lowest differential. So we add those 10 together, we divide by 10 to get the average, and then the average is multiplied by 0.96. The 0.96 is called the bonus for excellent, and it is an incentive for players to improve their golf game that the WSGA system builds in. The bonus of excellence, as I said, it's meant to incentivize, because the lower your handicap is, the less that affects you. And then all numbers after the 10th digit are deleted, or what they call truncated, so we do not round when we figure out a handicap index. So I wanted to show you here a little graph of how many scores are used. So the number of scores that you have in your handicap record determine how many scores will be used to calculate your handicap index. As you can see here, from 5 or 6 scores, you only get one handicap differential. So if you only have 5 scores in there, it's going to pick whatever's lowest and base your handicap index off that handicap differential. So you really need to have a good number of scores in there to get a true value of what your handicap index should be. The more scores you have, the more numbers used, and therefore a better idea of what your true potential is. And as we see, as we get up to 20 scores, we use the lowest 10, which is where it caps out. So let's take a minute here and we'll look at my record. It's a little embarrassing, but which is an idea here of how the GIN system works. So as you can see here, we have our type around, our date, the score, the course rating and slope. The used column designates which scores are used by the system to calculate a player's handicap index. The differential shows the differentials for those scores, and then of course your course played. As you can see here, since the system already has everything built for me, the highlighted numbers in yellow, the highlighted scores, are the past 20. The one in green at the top is one that has been inputted since the most recent revision, so it isn't applied in your handicap index yet. And then it has marked which 10 it is using to create my handicap index. As you see, these are the lowest differentials, not the lowest scores. There are some scores in here, for example, the 612 2016, the 97, that one is being used because it was played on a very difficult golf course versus the 94 I shot on an easier golf course. So, big thing to remember, golf course matters a lot, not just score. Alright, so now taking my record into account, we're going to figure out what my handicap index should be. So first we find the 10 scores with the lowest handicap differentials that were all marked down there, which come out to be the 17.0, 19.7, 17.9, 18.9, 20.6, another 20.6, 15.8, 19.7, 17.9, and 14.8. We add all these together and we get 182.9. Divide by 10 for the average, which is 18.29. This is then multiplied by 0.96 for the bonus of excellence, and it comes out to 17.5584. Now remember, we do not round here, so it doesn't come out to 17.6, but instead we truncate or we delete everything after the first decimal place, which gives us 17.5. As you can see here, sadly that matches what my handicap index is in GIN. So that is handicap index and the basics. So a few things I want to remind everyone of. Our motto is golf for everyone, and the handicap index helps everyone compete against each other in a fair and meaningful way. A few other things here. Adjusted gross score. This is very important because you need to make sure your scores are posted correctly for the index to be calculated correctly. Now this means that not only are you posting the correct score, taking into account unfinished holes or holes not played, but also that you're following that ESC rule of only having a maximum hole value. So if you're a 17 handicap, you don't post anything over a 7. You shoot an 8, it goes down to a 7, and that's what you post. It's very important to follow that so your handicap index is calculated correctly. And it also means that you have the correct course put in there and the correct tees, because you post the wrong tees and then your handicap differential for that score will be calculated incorrectly. For your handicap index, big thing to remember is it is a measurement of potential. A lot of people think it's just an average, and it's not. It's supposed to measure your potential for a round of golf. So when you look at it, that's why it takes the 10 lowest and takes an average from there, because it wants you to try to strive for that. The handicap index isn't something that you should be shooting every day. The exact statistic, I'm not positive, but out of 100 rounds, there's only like 20 of them or less that you should be actually shooting your handicap index. It's not something that it's not an average. And the other very important thing is that, again, this is calculated from handicap differentials and not scores. I really want people to remember that because there are two very different things. You have your handicap differential is based on your score, but it is not the only thing that is taken into account. The difficulty of golf course plays a major factor in determining your differential, which mates your handicap index. And the other thing, more stores you have, the more accurate this is going to be, up to 20. But for for people just starting out, if you don't have 20 yet, your handicap index is going to be a little off. It'll probably be lower than you think it really should be, and it will get there. Just add more stores, and we will get there. So I know that was pretty short, but we just wanted to cover this and make sure everyone had a good idea of how their handicap index is truly calculated. And if you have any questions, we at the handicap department are always available, so feel free to email us. Our emails are on the website, or you can always call us at the office. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day from the WSGA.